1078 officer in need.
What's up, guys? It's Matt from the 1078 Project. Hey, if you're new to the organization, a little bit about us. The 1078 Project is a non-profit organization that's been founded and developed by law enforcement officers who have been involved in critical incidents and officer-involved shootings. Our goal at the 1078 Project is to provide mental, spiritual, and practical support to law enforcement officers as they navigate the difficult times surrounding an officer-involved shooting. With that being said, let's dive into today's episode, and I'll see you on the other side, boys.
Yeah, dude. And I think what you just said, imagine all the marriages that would, or all the divorces that would have been stopped if they had that realization that I can't be God for my spouse and they can't be God for me. I think every divorce, you could probably, that's probably a oversimplification. A lot of divorces, you could come down to the root of, or the foundation of their problems by essentially saying, I expected you to meet all my needs and you didn't. So I'm going to go find somebody who will.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that essentially like what most divorces? Sure. I got into this thinking that you would meet my needs and you're not meeting all my needs. So I'm going to go find somebody who can. And to that, I would just say like, good luck, you know?
Yeah. That is like, I've watched that movie at work 1,000 times. The dude's like, oh, my wife's not doing this or my wife's not doing that. And next thing you know, they step outside of their relationship. And then it's like, and that relationship fails and ends in a train wreck. And then it happens again. And that relationship fails and it ends in a train wreck. And then it ends, like, I know guys have been divorced, and nothing against them. Some of them are great guys, but they've been divorced like 4 or 5 times because that exact concept, like what you just said, like they're putting an enormous weight on their spouse to fill their every last need. Like you have to do everything. Like I have to get all of my satisfaction from you. And anytime I'm not getting satisfaction from you, like we're distant from each other. Like this isn't going to work unless you could provide those things that I need. Yeah. It's so unrealistic.
It's impossible. It's an impossible. You will always end up frustrated by your spouse and they'll always end up bitter towards you, you know, for putting that pressure on them to meet all, like, even if that's all subconscious, but you'll end up, you know, frustrated with them because they're not meeting your needs, and they'll end up just feeling bitter. Like, why are you putting that pressure on me? And that's, that pattern that you said you've seen that movie over and over again, that the highest kind of example of that is the marriage relationship, because it's so consequential. Like when that falls apart, usually there's lots of heartache and financial strain. If there's kids, there's, you know, it's just messy. It's messy in every way, but all of us are doing it, some variation of that in some area of our life, which is, this will satisfy me. So again, the highest example of that is marriage. You better satisfy me. This probably will. And it doesn't, and it gets messy. But there's other things, like everyone's going to something to try to satisfy their soul. So it might be an addiction to something. It could be work. It could be a number in your bank account. Like, if I could just get to that number, then I'll hit it. I always say, like, again, I believe in Jesus. I try to live my life through the foundations of Scripture. I think that God designed humanity best and knows how it works, how humans work best. And so I always say that's like that tactic of like satisfaction being around the next bend is like, that's Satan's number one tactic. Like, it's just around the corner, and all of us fall into that trap. Like, dude, if I just get that boat, if I could just move here, if I could just get my wife to do this, or if I could just get that in my bank account, then if I could get this shift, or whatever the thing, like all of us are like, it's just around the bend. It's just around the bend.
I just had a conversation with Kate like this last night. We were going to, the kids went to a church event, and Kate and I took Zeke to Dairy Queen. Well, I really took Kate to Dairy Queen. Zeke didn't want Dairy Queen, but Kate wanted Dairy Queen. So I was like, whatever, let's go to Dairy Queen. And we were driving, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, like, we drove past, we have property, and we drove like close to it. And, you know, we had plans to put our dream house there, right? We wanted to have like this house and blah, blah, blah. And I'm driving, and I come to this realization. I'm like, because I just felt like for a second that I was like a mouse running on a wheel, you know, like in life just feels like a mouse running on a wheel. And I'm like sitting there, I'm talking to Kate, and I'm like, why are we racing to the end of our life? Wow. Like, why are we just sprinting towards the end of our life just to have things. You know, like we want to have this house and we want to have this car and we want to have this thing. And, you know, if I only had this or if I only had that, and it's like we're just sprinting towards the end of our life 24/7. Like, and that, I don't know if that's necessarily like a worldwide thing, but it's specific to Americans. Like we are all in a rat race to success. Like everybody's just running as fast as they can towards the end of our life. And like they never stop and just enjoy life. You know, like you see that thing of I seen a picture of this celebrity was walking by and it's like all these millennials and in the middle of it is this old lady and she's just standing there by herself and everybody else has their phone out and they're videotaping this lady or this celebrity as they come by and she's just sitting there like completely still just watching everything happen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the happiest person in the crowd.
Yep.
Like this lady is just in the moment. She's just enjoying the second. She's not worried about posting it to any social medias or whatever else. As we say, this is going to be posted on like every social media, but so I'm probably not helping the issue, but.
Well, I think just comes to, are you going to post that because of there's part of you that wants to be satisfied in it, or are you posting it because, you know, you want to help people? And I'm in the same boat. Like everything I do is online, you know, so and a lot of my motivation is because I just want to help guys. And there's also some of my motivations like, I think this will satisfy. If enough people like this or hear this, this will probably satisfy my soul. And it never does. It's just, it's the same. I play that out in a million different ways, dude. Like, you know, we're talking about marriage, but even if it's not marriage, it's like, if I can get on the boat today and go fish, then I'll finally feel rested and relaxed in my soul. And so dude, nothing ever satisfies.
Yeah.
There's one of my favorite stories in the Bible is Jesus walking up to the woman at the well. And we know that she's had multiple husbands. She slept around with a lot of dudes. And essentially what she's looking for is satisfaction. This guy will satisfy. This guy will satisfy. None of them do. And Jesus says, your soul's super thirsty. Like he's using the analogy of water and thirst because they're getting water at a well. Which Jesus, even if you don't believe in him or you don't think he's got, like, it's just brilliant. Even if you thought it was a fake story, the story is still beautifully put together. But, you know, he's using this analogy of water and he says, are you thirsty? And she says, of course, you know, that's why I'm at the well. And he says, do you want water that will make you never thirst again? And she thinks essentially he's a magician. Like, okay, yeah, where can we find that water? And he says, it's me. Like your soul it's not physically you're thirsty. It's your soul is thirsty. And if you want to actually be satisfied, you need to come to me. And it's just so beautiful, that analogy of like her longing for water, but really he's saying it's deeper than just the physical things. Your soul is actually craving something to satisfy your soul. And that's just, I think that's all of us, dude. For her, it was a bunch of dudes or husbands or whatever. But for us, it's the boat, it's the bank account, it's the rat rate, whatever the thing is we're chasing. Dude. And Jesus would say to every single one of us, he would say to me and to you and every listener, like, what is that you want? You just keep chasing after things. Your soul's so thirsty. Do you want something that will actually satisfy you? And it's me. I'm the only thing that will give your soul rest. And that's really good news for all of us who are constantly trying to drink something to satisfy, and we keep finding ourselves unsatisfied.
Yeah. That's like, there's a pretty wealthy person that I communicate with about 1070 on a regular basis, you know, high up at a really big company. And he's like, man, I've been there, done that. I've had 5 houses. I've made hundreds of $1,000s a year. None of it matters. Yeah. And like me as like a broke cop, I'm like, bro, I think it'd probably help. You know, like I think.
Can I just test it?
Yeah, like I think I'm just saying, I want to see. Like $500,000 sounds great to me. Yeah. But he's like, at the end of it, none of it matters, man. Like it doesn't matter. None of it. He's like, I got rid of all of it. I don't have any of it anymore. Like I've tried it and it didn't work. Before we get too far off topic, I want to jump back to like the formation of Dad Tired.
Yeah.
And what was your mission and your goal when you first started Dad Tired?
Dude, I didn't have a mission goal. I didn't plan on starting any of this. I didn't plan on doing any of this. So you asked about my dad, like how I reconcile things with my dad, and that plays into Dad Tired. So I try to plant this church. I'll give you a super short version. I tried to plant this church with a guy who I thought was a friend, turned out to not be a good friend at all. It ended super messy. He did me dirty, for lack of better words. And so I'm without a job. It was the first time in my whole adult life that I wasn't working at a church. I didn't know what I was going to do for work. My marriage was falling apart. Leila and I were like we were so far, dude. I was like literally Googling divorce lawyers and like trying to figure out custody battles and stuff in my head. Cause I'm like, my marriage is going to fail. This is the trend of every dude in my family. Every guy leaves. And I guess that's going to be my story too. I leave my kids, even though I never wanted to do that. That's going to be my story. So I found out through a fight. I was in the middle of a fight with my wife. You know Leila really well. Yeah, I'm fighting with her. She is awesome, dude.
She also seems like she'd be really difficult to fight with because she's pretty witty.
Bro, it sucks, dude. It sucks so bad. She's so much smarter than me. Like fighting with Leila, I'm playing chess. She's playing checkers. No, yeah. I'm playing checkers. See, I can't even get the knot. Like that's how dumb I am. Yeah. She's playing chess. I'm playing checkers, and it sucks, bro. She's so much smarter. She will ask me a question at the beginning of an argument, knowing that she's going to put me in a position to trap me like 15 minutes later in the argument. Anyway, clearly I still have some bitterness. Like I'm still working through that. Anyway, so actually we were in a fight, and I remember thinking in that fight, because I had already like in my brain thought, I'm going to divorce her. We're done. And I wasn't even going to try to outsmart her because I knew that was an impossible task. She could outsmart me a million times over. So I'm like, I'm just going to hurt her. Just be a mean guy. So I came back into the house after like Googling divorce lawyers and mentally checking out. And I was like, I'm just going to say hurtful things, like hurt her feelings. So I'm like telling her, I'm going to divorce you. I'm leaving, blah, 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 saying all this terrible things. And she starts to cry. And bro, I was in such a bad spot that I'm like, I'm winning the argument. Like I'm happy. I'm finally winning. She's not outsmarting me. And she told me, she said, in the middle of that argument that changed my life forever, she said, Jarrad, I want you to know I've been waking up in the middle of the night, and I've been going in the living room, and I've been begging God to capture your heart again. That you would be essentially the man that I know you're called to be, that God made you to be, because I don't know who this man is. And it was like, I was ready to cuss. I was ready to slam doors. I was ready to be macho and mean and loud. I was not ready for my wife to tell me she's been waking up in the middle of the night praying for me. And that it changed. There's a verse in the Bible that says that it's God's kindness that leads us to repentance. It's God's kindness that changes our ways. And it was his kindness through Leila that changed my ways that day. Like it broke down all my walls. I was trying to be an angry man, and really I was like a sad boy. And she like cut down the angry man walls, and it just went to like the sad boy. And that changed everything. So I started to like talk about that kind of publicly, basically say like, dude, I'm failing as a husband. I'm failing as a dad. I'm not doing this very well. And then all of a sudden, all these guys started to reach out and like, dude, I feel the same way. And at that time, this was about 10 years ago. There was very few resources like 1078, Dad Tired. There were very few things for guys to like process. Podcasting was like barely getting started back then. So there was there were mommy blogs and stuff, but there wasn't like a place where dudes could just go have these kind of conversations. And so it just it exploded, like out of nowhere, it exploded. And that's how Dad Tired started. I didn't have a goal. I was still in the middle of my own like marriage that was just about to fall apart. But it was actually again, sorry for my ADD here, but it was actually in the middle, probably 3 weeks after that day where my wife told me she was praying for me, that my dad texted me or called me randomly. He's like, hey, I'm going to be up in Oregon. He lives in California, but he's like, I'm going to be up in Oregon, which is where I was living. He's like, can I come see you? And I hadn't heard from my dad in years. So I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. And he didn't know that I was like in this turmoil of my soul and in my marriage. So I'm like, yeah, I'd love to see you. You can meet the kids or whatever. He comes up. We're at this super nice restaurant, like one of the nicest restaurants in Portland. It's 37 stories up over the city. It overlooks the river, mountains, beautiful. So we're up there. I haven't seen my dad in years, haven't talked to him. He doesn't know what I'm going through. I'm in counseling at this point. And I just think to myself, like, I'm going to just tell my dad, like, basically lay out all my childhood, like pain. And so I just I'm like, Dad, I love you. I forgive you. I'm not mad at you, but I just need to know, like, how did you leave me when I was a boy? Because I have a son who's the same age, and I can't imagine leaving him right now. Like, I just need to know where your head was at. Like, again, I'm not mad at you. I just need to know where your head was at when you left. And dude, I think this was God's timing, because out of all if I would have asked him that a year earlier or 6 months later, I don't know how he would have handled it. But that particular night, he just took it like a man, dude. He like took it on the chin, didn't make a single excuse. I'm bawling in the middle of this nice restaurant. He just apologized. He's like, it's the biggest regret of my life. I think about it every single day. I wish I could go back a million times over and change that. And I'm really sorry. And he just owned it. And that was really a day for he and I to find like healing, start a new relationship. as I was finding this new like healing in my marriage. And that's all how Dad Tired started, dude, in the middle of all that like pain. So
Really?
yeah.
Dude, that's nuts. I've always wondered how you attacked that, because I've known your story, obviously, and I've always wondered to myself, man, how did you deal with, because I just know myself, and I know how bitter and angry I'd be, you know, like,
yeah,
I'm a grudge holder, dude, and like I try to forgive people, but I'm not really that good at it, you know. So I can only imagine sitting across that table and just being like, I want to let it out on you. Like, I want to let you have it. Like, I want to tell you all of the terrible things, all the bad decisions that I've made because of you, because you left me and you didn't prepare me for life. Like, that's exactly where I would have been. I would have been ready just to let him have it.
Yeah. I think, dude, it's weird, man. There's like a lot of grace for dads. You know what I mean? Like, you even I see this a lot with women with their dads when they're like, for whatever reason, I've seen this where a woman can be really mad at their mom as an adult. They're really mad at their mom, but even if their dad completely failed, they like still want to give their dad grace. Even if they're mad, even if he like messed up, they're like, there's something in us that's like, I still really need you, Dad. Like, even though I'm pissed at you and you messed up, like, I've noticed in humans that we really want our dads. Like, anger might be the emotion that we're like expressing, like you were just saying, like, dude, I want you to feel all of my anger. But really what I would imagine is like, I just want you to know how sad I am because I really want you to be my dad. You know what I mean? Like, it's this weird thing that's like built into the system for us to want to give grace to our dads.
Surprisingly, like the thing that's always like, when I look back at, I love my parents. Like, we have a great relationship, and so I don't want it to come across like I'm dogging on them. But there's a Joe Rogan quote that sticks with me, and I get it. It's Joe Rogan's like, you know, bro math or whatever. But he had like it was a couple years ago. He said that adults are just overgrown children. Yeah, and I thought, and I don't know where I was that day, but I thought to myself, like, man, maybe like all of the things, like some of the resentment that I have about my childhood or whatever else, like maybe my parents were just dealing with stuff. Maybe they just like, maybe nobody ever taught them. Like, maybe nobody ever gave them an avenue of like growth and understanding. Like, maybe some of the things that they were doing, they thought were right at the time, you know, and they really weren't prepared for what, you know, life was going to throw at them because they're just an overgrown child. And I think when you look at it that way, it's easier to offer your parents grace and mercy, knowing that in most cases they're doing the best with the hand that they're dealt, you know?
Dude, I think you're 100% right. Like, I think my dad, I haven't run the math and I'm terrible at math, but he had to be probably somewhere in his 20s when he left, and his dad completely bailed on him. You know, my dad hates his dad. So I'm like, with the tools that he was given, and he's in his 20s, like, dude, I was an idiot in my 20s, you know, like, and I had some tools, you know, I probably had more tools than he had when he was in his 20s. And so, yeah, when you just look at him at that point, like, dude, they were in their 20s and 30s, and I'm in my 20s and 30s, and I'm still an idiot, you know, like, I don't know what I'm doing, you know? So it is easier to give them grace when you like look at it from that perspective.
Yeah. So you start Dad Tired, and you start to grow this little community of all, you know, I guess it's not just men really. I think a lot of women listen to your stuff as well. I know Kate does, but so you build this community, and obviously it starts to grow. This is a side note that probably nobody in the audience wants to hear about, but I'm going to ask you because it's important to me. You know, since I've started 1078, I've taken on way more responsibility than I ever thought that I would have, and like growing an organization, and a lot of people don't realize behind the scenes, but doing this isn't easy. You know, it's not easy on your family, and it's not easy on your personal life. With your relationship with Leila kind of already being on the rocks and then starting Dad Tired, how did you guys manage that lifestyle? Because for Kate and I, who our marriage wasn't really on the rocks whenever we started this whole thing, but there have been times where it's become a big issue between us.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a little bit of a difference because we were basically on the brink of divorce, And then my mind shifted to like, now I'm committed to be in my marriage. And so I was starting this organization, and I wasn't really thinking through, I'm starting an organization. I'm just thinking through, I'm going to be a committed dad. And husband. So it was a little bit different because she saw me from like completely checked out as a man to like, now I'm focused on being a husband and dad. And I didn't have another job at that point. I was driving Uber. I was literally selling gutters at Costco and stuff. Like I was just I was taking pictures of people like as a photographer. I'm not a photographer. Like I barely know how to turn a camera on.
I beg to differ, bro. You've taken some fantastic pictures of my family.
No, very amateur, like iPhone photography. Like I don't really know what I'm doing. So at that point, it was a little bit different than what you're doing because you're still working full time and you've got a drive in you. So yeah, I don't know if that will answer your question completely, but for us, it was like, it was a stark contrast between Jarrad's not around as a husband and dad, and now he is, so it actually helped us in that
there's
way.
Like a blessing in it.
Yeah, there was totally a blessing in it. I think Leila was just happy to have me excited to have me back as a husband and dad.
So I know we only have like a limited time because you're busy, so I won't take up too much more of your time, but there's a couple things that, in my opinion, there's like an epidemic of men across the country that are failing as a husband and as a dad, specifically in the law enforcement world. So you being the resident expert that you are, I think you've done more interviews and have focused on this more than probably anybody else that I know in my life. Can you give a couple pieces of advice for like a policeman out there that, feels like his marriage isn't going the way that he wants it to go, or feels like he can't be the dad that he wants to be? What are things that you do on like a regular basis, like that kind of keep you in check or that kind of guide your life, that you think would be beneficial for a guy in that position?
Yeah. Well, first, dude, I just want to say to your community and your audience, I could not be more pro police officer. So I'm so thankful for the men and women who, and I'm not saying this to be like cheesy, like I mean this from the depths. You guys are truly my heroes. And I mean that for our military. I just have massive respect for somebody who puts on a uniform and says, I'm willing to put my life in line for strangers. It's incredible to me. And you guys really are my heroes. So thank you. You're my best friend. So you know that I feel that towards you, but again, bro, thank you for what you do and for what all the people who are suiting up every day to do that. It means the world.
We appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, man. Well, we're able to do stuff like this because there's a lot of people willing to sacrifice so that we can stay safe. I would say this. Let me give a cheesy analogy. So I live in South Carolina. 4 hours south of us is Disney World. If I told my family, hey, we're going to go to Disney World today, I have 4 kids. We would load up the car and they would want me to go as fast as I can. Literally, they would ask every 20 minutes, are we almost there? Are we almost there? Are we almost there? And if I pulled off at every time I saw a billboard for the next, like, oh, there's a Buc-ee's. Oh, there's a Dairy Queen. Let's get, some milkshakes or whatever. I'm just keep pulling off. My family's going to be so frustrated. Like, please just get us to Disney World. That's the goal. That's the only place we want to go. And every time we divert from that, it's frustrating for them and for me. And the same thing is true. I think most dudes do not have an end goal in mind when they're thinking about their life. Like, think about your death. You on your deathbed, or this being your last day, or whatever it is. Like, you've got your final moments of life. What do you want to be said about you? What do you want people to say? Like, this man was like that. Like, here's what I want people to say at my funeral. Most guys don't ever think about that. And you might, and people in your profession might, because you actually might be faced with death situations quite often. But I would say one of the greatest things you can do, Leila is an oncology nurse, so she walks people into death a lot, or is on their death journey a lot. So we talk about death a lot in our house. And bro, I am almost like obsessed with it. Is maybe not, I don't know if that's the right word. It's kind of morbid, but I think about my death all the time. Best case scenario, I told you I'm 37 years old. I think the lifespan for a male in the United States is like 77. So best case scenario, I'm halfway done with my life. Best case scenario. That's if I live a long life. Mm-hmm. We all know, and you know better than anyone, anything can happen at any time. Yeah. And so death is coming very, very fast. Whether I get a long life or it ends today after this call, like, Death is coming very quickly. And every time I don't have a goal set out for me, every time I don't know what I want to be said at my funeral, what I want my kids to say, what I want my wife to say about me, is a taking an exit. So when you're like, oh, I should take this extra shift at work, or I should just chase that fantasy football, or do that affair, or chase after that hobby, all of that is just taking an exit off of the goal. And most dudes do it because they don't ever have a goal. I don't even know where I'm trying to go. So this looks flashy over here. Let me take this exit. Or, oh, cool, there's a Dairy Queen over here. Let's take a 20-minute detour over here because I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
That's a really rambling way of saying, like, bro, the greatest thing you could do for your own life, for your sanity, for your joy, for your family, is to say, here's actually what my goal is. And I would say, if you want to get serious, write it out. Like, write out your actual end of your life goal. What do you want to be said about you as a man? And be as specific as possible. Like, I want to have a long marriage. I want my wife to have her wrinkly old hand in my hand as we're sitting on a porch together and we're looking back at our long, hard marriage that we fought for. I want my kids to be grown and to love Jesus. I want to see grandkids around. Like, I want to, by God's grace, be used and see that God used our life and our brokenness and our marriage to see other people's lives changed. Like, I want to be as specific as possible. And so that every time a distraction comes up, instead of saying yes to that detour, I say, no, dude, I'm laser focused. Paul would say, I run after the prize that's set before me. And so for a dude that's just clocking in, clocking out, just kind of trudging through, like, bro, write the goal out. What are you chasing after? What's the end of your life going to look like? It's coming super quick. Right. Best case scenario, it's still coming super quick. And so stop getting distracted with all the other things that don't matter.
Dude, I think we had this conversation, and I don't even realize it, that I think I called you one time, like shortly after my shooting, and I talked about how this was like the biggest and greatest blessing to me. And everybody looks at me like a weirdo when I say that, like, this has been the best bad thing that's ever happened to me. And totally. I think it's because that perspective, like, I got to look at death and I got to look at myself in the mirror and realize that I don't think that I was who I wanted to be.
Wow.
Like, if somebody would have wrote out who Matt was that day, like, would I be happy with who I was? Like, would I feel like I did the things did I check the list off of the things, like my goals of life, or like where I want to leave my family or whatever else? Like, will my legacy be what I wanted it to be? And I think we had that conversation, and then that shooting was like, it was like a huge smack in the face in the middle of my life while I'm still in my prime. You know, like a lot of people wait until they're 65 years old and then things start, you know, this starts to go and that starts to go. And then now they get a cancer diagnosis and, like, man, my life is really starting to get short. I got like 10 years at the most, and they make this huge life change. And they're like, now their kids are like, oh, my dad changed so much right before he died. Yeah. It's like, I got lucky enough. It's unfortunate that it happened the way that it did, but I got lucky enough to get smacked in the face at 30 rather than, you know, 65 where I'm on my deathbed and I don't have my faculties to kind of, you know, really live out the life that I wanted to live. And there's been nothing truer than what you just said, is like getting that smack in the face and realizing who I want to be and the legacy that I want to live, and being able to look back at the Matt that I was and say, I'm not really happy with that Matt. You know, like, I want to change these things about myself. I want to change these things about my family. I want to change these things about the way that my kids view life in general. It's been a game changer. That's the formation of 1078. You know, was like, I'm not happy with this, man. I'm not happy with who I am. I'm not happy with, you know, the way things are going right now for law enforcement, or, you know, my own mental health, or the mental health of all the dudes that I work with. And like, I need to implement some type of change that is going to be beneficial for people. And like you said, dude, life's short, man. Tomorrow, you know, like, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. I could go start my truck and drive home and, you know, end up getting hit on the highway and die. And it's like, you know, I think you're right in the sense that law enforcement looks at these, you know, faces death probably more often than most people, but still, you know, you don't really realize how short it is. And you've always been obsessed with death. I remember, like, when we first met each other, you're like, man, I'm obsessed with death. And I was like, okay, bro. Like,
this guy's weird, dude.
All right, buddy. Like, you want to come to my house? I'm like, I don't think I do, dude.
It's my main motivation, bro. I think about it so much. I don't know what it is. I keep saying like I'm gonna write a book about it one day. I don't know what I would say about it. It's gonna be like a 2-page book, but just like we're all gonna die. Stop stop chasing after stupid stuff. But yeah, I'm obsessed with it, man. For you guys that are like dealing with it every day, I guess maybe the advice would just be to, like, don't get numb to it, bro. Like I would imagine it'd be easy just to kind of get numb to it. Another car accident, another shooting, another whatever, It's just like, dude, don't get numb, man. It's like we get one shot at this.
Yeah. One of the guys I'm really close with told me this story like a year ago. He goes to a dead body. It's like a younger person passed away, heroin overdose, I think. And he realizes that he's not going to be at home on time. So he's in this room with this person who's dead, and he's like doing his thing, and he's gets out his phone and he's calling his wife, and he's telling his wife that he's not going to be able to make it. And he's standing over the top of stepping mid-step over the top of this guy who's passed away, calling his wife, telling her that he's not going to be home on time. And she's like yelling at him about how he's not going to be at home on time. And he's like standing in this room, and it dawns on him. He's like, I don't think I'm normal. I don't think this is a normal thing that people do. And I think it was like a big push for him to start taking, some of the things that we see and go through at work, seriously, and trying to navigate that road of man, maybe I need to take my mental health seriously. Maybe I need to take my faith journey seriously. Maybe I need to start making better decisions about who I am and what I do. 'Cause I don't live this normal generic life like most people do. Crazy.
Yeah. I think death and space have a way of grounding me, giving me perspective. I'm into weird. I think I'm becoming an old man, dude. I just like old man things, but I told you, we just got a dog who I think about you all the time. I'm like, how would Matt train this dog right now? What do I need it? I need to call Matt. Help me train this dog. Got to take that dog out in the middle of the night now. I'm going to. I'll take that dog out in the middle of the night and I'll just stare up at the stars for so long, and it just brings me it gives me so much perspective. Bro, we're so small this. We're just a dot in this galaxy. It's so weird. I don't know how we don't all talk about space more. The fact that we're just floating in the galaxy is insane.
I think it's so big. It's so big picture that it's too hard to understand. When you texted me about the aliens at the Miami Mall, I almost fell out, dude. You're like, what do you think this is? I'm like, bro, if there was aliens there, one cop would have broke. That's me going to that call. I would have called you immediately. Oh, there's aliens. There's no aliens there, man. You can't keep that many cops quiet.
Okay, no aliens at that particular call, but there's aliens out there, man. We got to start a whole new part 2 of this, go into the conspiracy theory of aliens.
I know, dude. I don't know. That stuff freaks me out.
I'm a believer, man. I'm a believer.
How would you? I don't know. We can go on for another 45
This would be
minutes.
See, now we just got everyone that's listening. It's yeah, let's get into the good stuff. Who cares about Jarrad's freaking childhood trauma? Let's talk about aliens.
I would
ask pilots.
but
ask all the pilots. That's what makes you start to ask deeper questions. When you ask all the pilots, what do you see up there? And every pilot has some kind of story, seen some weird stuff. And you're like, all right, what's going on?
Don't you have a pilot friend that you're pretty close friends with?
Yeah.
You seen some stuff?
He's seen some stuff, bro.
See, I think it's simpler than that, man. I feel like it's government technology.
Well, some of it,
they were using cell phones 50 years ago. The government was using cell phones 50 years ago. And if you would have seen that 50 years ago, you'd have been like, that dude's an alien. He has, how is he communicating with people with this little box in his hand? You know what I mean? You would have been it would have made no sense to you. And I feel like science is so much further along than what we think it is, and the government has access to all this technology that we don't have access to. That I think, I don't know. Maybe I'm just.
Did you see the video? You saw the video? The pilot I think he was a Navy pilot out in San Diego. The Tic Tac video, the real famous one that got leaked.
Yeah, we went 50,000, 500 feet in a matter of a second or something. Like that, less than a second.
Whatever was in that would be Jello. No, if there's maybe, yeah.
We use drones nonstop. We use cameras, all this other stuff.
I will say this, because we live out in a military town, you know, so there are a lot of military guys out here, especially pilots. And all the ones that I've asked, they always say it's over the ocean. They always see weird stuff over the ocean. And I'm like, is there stuff happening over our ocean that we just don't know about? Like, is there stuff in the ocean?
I think it's the best training facility. And there could be stuff in the ocean. Who knows? But I think it's the best, like, training ground. Like, why would you fly stuff over? There's not many people in the ocean. Like, right?
Right.
Like open ocean? Like, I'm not going out in the open ocean. That's freakier than space, dude.
It is terrifying. They say it's more explored. Space is more explored than...
It is.
Our galaxy is more explored than the oceans.
Yeah, it's the freaky... Like, that when I talk about aliens, those are the real aliens. Like, the things that they pull out of the ocean, that stuff's freaky.
Yeah. I don't know, man. For me, it's like that these conversations are like, you know how people have like their, what do they call? I always forget the name of it, like their guilty pleasure. You know, everyone's got their guilty, like these kind of like alien conversations are my guilty. It's like the space my brain gets to go that just feels like a brain massage, you know, like it just gets to relax and check out.
Sometimes it's fun to talk about weird stuff.
It's super fun. I don't have to think about like, oh, I got to pay bills and my house just flooded.
Can you imagine being like Rogan? You're making like $10 billion a year just talking about
aliens. All the time. Yeah, that guy's
talking about all kinds of stuff. Like he has like super intelligent people on there all the time, but a lot of times he's talking about this.
Yep.
He's talking about aliens. He's like,
I love it.
I believe in him.
That's probably why I believe in him. I listen to too much Rogan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's good. He's the best interviewer ever.
Incredible.
Greatest interviewer of our generation for sure.
Totally. Yeah. Crazy.
All right. Well, I won't take up any more of your time now that we're talking about aliens, but where can people find you?
If they just type in Dad Tired, pretty much anywhere on the internet, you know, something will pop up. Social medias and website, podcast, and all that stuff.
Yeah. What's your new podcast called?
I'm doing two new ones. What was that?
I'm not supposed to talk about them.
Oh, no. I'm doing two new ones. One with Ben Roethlisberger every week. So that one's a lot. That's pretty football heavy if guys are into football. And we still talk about Jesus and family life and stuff like that. That one's called Footballin' with Ben Roethlisberger. And then I'm starting a new one January next year with K-Love, the radio station. It'll be a 5-minute a day, like daily devotional.
That's a new one. I didn't know about this.
Yeah.
Good
January.
for you, bro.
Thanks, man.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, hit him up. Find him on Instagram. Go to his YouTube videos. Subscribe. Like him. Follow along. YouTube has a weird algorithm, so it's hard to hack that algorithm to get growth. So make sure you go there. Follow along.
Yeah, dude.
It makes no sense to me. Some videos I have like 500 views and other videos I have like 2. I'm like, how does this make any sense? And none of this.
I haven't cracked the YouTube code. I don't know anything about it. I'm terrible at YouTube.
Me too. And I also don't think they like my content either, but
that's probably true.
Probably not yours either.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
All right. Well, follow along. Make sure you at least go to his Instagram, give him a follow. He's an awesome dude. And for those of cops out there that are skeptical about Christian leaders, I've spent a lot of time with Jarrad. A lot of phone calls, a lot of time with him and his family. And he's as legit as they come. You know, he's not just a dude that says the things. He's a dude that does the things. It's a pretty big inspiration to me. So
thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
For sure.